Hi students, let's look at our first lecture in day 2 of English 099. Today we're going to look at verbs. So in the content page, you can go down to PowerPoint slides and go to lecture 1 and click on this button here if you want to look at it on Canvas. Let's make this bigger and start our lecture today. So in this lecture, we're going to look at grammar in terms of verbs. There are many points here, and we'll go through the rules one by one when it comes to using verbs in academic writing. First, let's try some practice. Take a look at these sentences and see if you can find any errors. I'll give you a few moments to take a look. I'll read them to you. Number 1, my list of student names and addresses were out of date. 2, there are 1 punctuation error and many grammatical errors in the essay. 3, there is many grammatical errors and 1 punctuation error in the essay. 4, if I was you, I would ask for a raise. And 5, either of these sentences are correct. Have you found any errors? Take a moment to write these sentences down if you haven't already, and circle any errors that you see in each sentence, and leave space or write in separate lines the correct sentence. Okay, so you can pause the video at this time if you want to take more time to write down the sentences, circle the errors, and write down the correct sentences. Or if you're just waiting for the answer, or you just don't know, well, that's okay. I will show you the errors in these sentences now, starting with number 1. Number 1. My list of student names and addresses were out of date. When things are out of date, we're talking in the present, talking about now. So this is the incorrect verb form. And remember, we are looking at verbs and things that are related to verbs, like nouns that come before verbs usually. And sometimes you have verbs after the noun too. But for now, here we see student names and addresses, and it's a list of them. More importantly, take a look at the subject here. It is a list, and the list is singular. There is 1 list. So we have subject-verb agreement. A singular noun needs to have a singular verb form. So if we were talking about the present tense, then it would be my list of student names and addresses is out of date. Or if you're talking in the past tense, my list of student names and addresses was out of date. And that's number 1. Number 2. There are 1 punctuation error and many punctuation errors in the essay. This is another subject-verb agreement type of error. This is interesting because there are 2 nouns, 1 punctuation error and many grammatical errors. This one is singular and this one is plural. Interestingly, if you try and sound it out, the one that comes first is a singular noun. 1 punctuation error. So, in sentences where there are 2 nouns, the verb here is are should match the first one. So, should say there is 1 punctuation error and many grammatical errors in the essay. And that's number 2. So see, number 1 has gone. So again, list is singular. It should match with the verb here. Is or was, depending on your tense. Okay, let's see if you can find the verb in number 3. The verb here is. Similarly to number 2, here you see the first noun that starts is a plural one. And this one is singular. So the error in this is that this verb should match the first noun that is right after the verb. So it should say there are many grammatical errors and 1 punctuation error in the essay. Let's try number 4. If I was you, I would ask for a raise. The verb here is was, and there's another one. I would ask. The second verb is fine in this clause, but let's look at the first one. When spoken, if I was you is acceptable. Although when academic writing, we should use if I were you. So that's the error there in this sentence. Last one, number 5. Either of these sentences are correct. This is quite interesting because we have the word either and the verb here are. So we found the verb. Either is interesting because, look, before you forget, it is not the sentences, even though it's a plural noun that is right next to the verb. We need to look out for the word of. So there's of here like this, and this one also has the word of before the noun. So list of student names and addresses. Here is of these sentences. We need to look at the noun before of, and that's the subject noun. So it's either. Either is interesting. It's like A or B. And that's different from A and B. If we use either and keep this, because we're talking about A or B, it's one of them. That's what either means. And since we're talking about one, it's singular. And because singular noun, we need to match the verb to a singular verb. So either of these sentences is correct. For your reference, neither, the opposite of either, means not A and not B, or not A nor B. And this one is actually plural. So if it was neither of these sentences, then it would be are correct. So if sentence A and sentence B are these sentences, then it would be sentence A and B are not correct. So those are the errors in these sentences. Many students, including myself when I was studying, make these errors too when I first started academic writing. And some of these errors do not prevent the reader from understanding, reader being your teacher most often, but sometimes they do. And sometimes it's part of your presentation as well. It just makes the essay harder to read, and in terms of marks, you'll get lower marks because it's harder to read. So, by getting rid of these errors and using the proper rules for verbs, your presentation in the paper would be cleaner, more clear, more concise, and in terms you get better marks, which is what you probably want, right? Let's go to the next slide. Now we're going to look at some rules for verb and verb tense, starting with rule 1. Rule number 1. Singular subjects use singular verbs and plural subjects use plural verbs. So this is part of your subject-verb agreement. If you have singular subjects, you use singular verbs. See, they match. Plural subjects use plural verbs. A lot of this grammar is kind of like math, especially with verbs, as you see here. Let's take a look at some examples. The syllabus has just been updated. Here, syllabus, even though it ends in an S, is a singular noun. You can check the dictionary. Try the online dictionary with the Longman dictionary and see for yourself. For your note, syllabus, this is the singular form, and syllabi is the plural form. English can be confusing, and this is one of those cases when it comes to nouns. A noun ends in an S, but it's actually singular. You just might have to memorize this one if you don't know the word already. But anyway, this is a singular noun, so it needs a singular verb, has. Let's try example 2. Several items. Oh, this is a more common rule. Yes, there is an S after this noun, and it is a plural. On the syllabus have just been updated. Here we see syllabus, but notice we have a preposition on here. It's like of. Now remember, if you see two nouns and a preposition between them, look at the noun before the preposition. In this case is items or several items. This means more than one. So we have a plural noun and we need to match it with a plural verb. See? Back to this rule here. Singular subjects, singular verbs. Plural subjects, plural verbs. Note, sometimes the subject may be shifted or hidden by other information. Not only do we have some problems that you may have nouns that look singular and are plural, or plural, they look plural and are singular, like syllabus. Or in the other case, if like oxen, it looks singular, but it's actually plural. So this is the plural form of ox, or male cows. Back to subjects that can be shifted or hidden by other information. Let's look at these examples. The list of items on the syllabus have just been updated. Here, notice it's like several items, but take a look. We have on and of. In this case, we have actually three nouns: list, items, and syllabus. List is singular, items is plural, syllabus is singular. So which one of these has been updated? Is it has or have? You can try common sense. Is it the syllabus that's been updated? Well, we have nouns before syllabus, so it's not that. Is it items on the syllabus? Well, there's a list of items, so it's not items either. If you see a bunch of nouns stringed together by prepositions like of or on, look for the first noun, is. And a good way to check, either the beginning of the sentence or you just have to logically follow the nouns that come before the preposition, or after, in this case. So it is the list that has been updated. So we're not using have, we're using has. Let's try another one. An important item to note, together with other changes that have recently been made, that the date of the library visit has been changed. Now, the verb here, what we're looking for is either is or are. This one is a longer version of example 1. Let's look at the nouns in this sentence. We have item. Note here is actually a verb because there's a to, so this is the infinitive form of note. It's to take notes of something. Together with other changes, so another noun here, this is plural, that have recently been made. So don't forget there's also date and library visit. Those are nouns too, but we don't need to note the nouns after the verb for subject-verb agreement. So is it changes? Well, let's take a look at their verbs with nouns before this. And we have item. Is there any noun? Are there any nouns before item? Nope. So the subject noun we're looking for is item that we need to note. And what is it that we need to note about? It is that the date of the library visit has changed. So because we're dealing with a singular noun, item, we need to use is and not are. Let's look at some shorter sentences. The same problem can exist in shorter sentences too, not just long ones. We read, here is, or are, the list of items you requested. So, you is actually a noun, items is a noun, list is a noun. So, you requested is already stringed together, so we don't need to worry about you or requested. The only two nouns that we need to note now is items or list. Which one do we use? See if you can figure it out. In this sentence, we're using the noun list because there's no preposition before it. Items has of, and of what? It's a list of items. So we're using list. The list is here. A good way to check these sentences is to change the voice. For example, this sentence reads, here is the list of items you requested. You can change the voice to say, the items you requested, or the list of items you requested is here. So if you're more familiar with the active voice, you can change a passive voice sentence like this into the active voice and see the subject-verb agreement match more clearly. And look at this one. This is an even shorter form. Here, blank, the items you requested. Again, is or are. How many nouns are there in this one? You and items. You requested are already paired up. We don't need to worry about that. Is there a list this time? No. It's just the items. So, we're not using is. We're using are. Here are the items you requested. Thankfully, this is video, so if you see the screen switching from window to window, you can always scroll back to take notes. It is good to pause sometimes when you take the notes as well in these lectures. I'll try to avoid the window thing, so my apologies. So that's the first rule. Singular subjects use singular verbs and plural subjects use plural verbs. And this is called subject-verb agreement. Okay, so if you've made an error like this in your essays, I might write this in your essay as feedback, and it talks about this rule, that singular subjects use singular verbs and plural subjects use plural verbs. Here's rule number 2. Subjects joined by and need a plural verb. Okay, so the date of the midterm exam and the date of the library visit have been shifted to Monday and Wednesday, July 18th and 20th respectively. Here it makes sense. We have one date and two dates. Together they combine to make a plural. So it is joined by and, so we have two dates So 2 dates, that's plural, so we need to use have for the verb. So take a look at this for a second, and I'm going to proofread my own correction of the error in sentence number 1, I believe. Let's use this rule. List is matching with the verb here, so we need to change that to was. One punctuation error and many punctuation errors, so that's correct. So it's error and error, so together they make errors. Here we need to change this to are. There are many errors. So sometimes for a natural English speaker, sentence number 2 can be tricky because you have the first noun, which is singular. So you may, I used is, but you shouldn't. You actually use are because it's one error and many errors, which make a plural, joined by and many errors. So that's rule 2 for sentence 2. So I make mistakes too, and if you make mistakes, that's okay. It is my job to help you find and correct those mistakes. Even I have people proofreading my papers too sometimes. So it is important that we build this practice. Let's look at rule number 3. The verb in an or nor sentence matches the final item after or nor. So let's take a look. Neither the final grammar quiz nor the final exam is changed. Here the final item is the final exam, and it's singular, so it matches the verb is, which is singular also. Here we have either. Either editing or citations are going to receive more emphasis due to the scheduling change. Citations is the final noun, so here we need to match the final noun, which is a plural, with the verb here are. So because this is plural, we need to match the verb plural as well, which is interesting because this rule makes me look at the last sentence differently compared to natural English speaking rules. So the final noun in sentence 5 is actually plural. So in this case, if we look at rule number 3, we have sentences, so it's actually a match. Either of these sentences, which is plural, are correct. So if we use rule number 3, we match the final noun, which is in this case plural, so we need to match the noun verb to a plural verb as well. And that's rule number 3 for either or nor sentences. Now we're on rule number 4. If you need to take a break, you can pause the video and come back, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You can always come back, but I'm going to keep going with the other rules. These rules are important because English, as in academic writing, can be complex. We're looking at the grammar part. And today we're looking at verb and verb tenses. Here is rule number 4. Rule 4. The following indefinite pronouns are singular. I've listed them in alphabetical order for you. Anybody, anyone, anything. In this line, you see the prefix any before the root here. Body, one thing. If you're looking for anybody, you're just looking for one person. It doesn't matter who it is. Same with anyone. You're just looking for one thing, which is anything. It's just one. You don't need more than one, but it doesn't matter what or who it is. So this is why these pronouns are singular. Anybody. So these are all just one. Each, either, every, everybody, everyone, everything. And this is interesting. Each is fairly obvious if you know the meaning of the word. It's each one, so you count them one by one. Either is A or B, so you look at one of them. Every, everybody, everyone, everything. It's different from each and every. Each is one by one. Any is anyone, doesn't matter who or what. And every groups them all together into one big group. So that's every something. Everyone, everything, everybody. And because we put them in one big group, it's singular. Here we have some more pronouns as well. Many a time, for example, many a thing or something. Neither, nobody, and nothing. These are singular indefinite pronouns as well. And the note is indefinite. It doesn't really refer to any one particular thing like he, she, it, I, you, we, and so on. But it refers to something, like somebody, someone, something. These ones are also singular. It refers to one particular thing, but we don't necessarily know who that is. Alright, here's an example. Everything in the syllabus is subject. So we have a singular indefinite pronoun that matches with a singular verb to change as we move through the course, but hopefully nothing else, nothing else will change. So we have two indefinite pronouns, 1 and 2, and these need to match the verb as well. Some verbs you might get lucky, like will. You don't need to make any changes to the verb form. Verbs like is and other verbs, you need to make changes to the verb form to match the noun. If you're stuck on these pronouns, try writing a sentence. So for example, anybody, oh, don't forget, I need to actually use can write. So here we have anybody. Thankfully it's a modal can write, so we don't need to make any changes. So let me try another sentence. Nobody wants to fail. So here we have nobody, and this time we have the verb, and we have a singular indefinite pronoun, so we need to match the singular verb. So you can pause this video now and try writing a sentence with each one, just like I did here. I just use anybody and nobody as an example. Try it out and then come back. You can also post these sentences on your discussion forum, and you can get it checked by me or have other students look at your sentences. If everyone writes at least one sentence, we can build up a pool of indefinite pronoun rules for practice and feedback. Rule number 5. Titles and organization names are singular, even if they look plural. For example, the Top Experts Give Top Tips is an excellent resource on how to approach academic writing. Here, the top experts give top tips, even though we have experts and tips. This group of words right here is actually an organization or a title name. It's a name of a text that you would read, an article. So because it's title of an article and we're talking about the article, which is singular, then we need to match the singular noun that the title is referring to, which is an article, with the singular verb. So organizations that even end with S, like Scouts, but you probably see Scouts Canada, so you'd be less confused. But if it was just Scouts, and it's an organization name, you would need to use is, or some sort of singular verb. Now I'll just finish the sentence. Scouts is helpful to the community. Alright, rule number 6. Collective nouns can be presented as singular or plural. And here we see in brackets, for clarity, you should add more specific nouns to support your verb choice. If you're wondering what this means, let's take a look at some examples. The sentence right underneath it, the first example reads, Corpus Christi's faculty is made up of instructors from a variety of backgrounds and experiences. So here we have is, and that's the verb we're looking for to see if it matches. We have Corpus Christi's faculty. Faculty here is a group of instructors. So, it's because it is talking about a group, and the group itself is singular. We can match the singular noun with a singular verb. By adding nouns or an explanation like made up of instructors, this sentence is trying to clear up that the faculty is a large group of people, or in this case, instructors. The second sentence, the faculty are categorized by whether they teach students MLA or APA style citations. Okay, the word faculty is interesting. Take a moment to check the dictionary. Actually, I'm going to do that now. Let's see what it says. So we're going to try to look at this word. See if I can make this bigger. There. Faculty. Notice there are different definitions for this. At least 3. So the first one is a countable noun. Department or group of related departments within the faculty. So since it's countable, it would be singular. Here's definition 2. It's countable or uncountable. It talks about all the teachers, all of them in a university. Both faculty and students oppose the measures. Here we have the and we see we can apply rule 2, which is a plural noun at the final noun of these two, faculty and students, and it matches the final noun. So we have a plural noun and a plural verb. Definition 3. Countable, note, usually plural. But this is talking about abilities and not people. But in this case though, faculty itself can be plural or singular depending on the definition. And here are some example sentences that you can see as well. Take a moment to read these if you want. Let's go back to the lecture. So, having noted that the faculty word can be singular or plural, and it is a collective noun, it is important to try and clear it up with specific nouns to support your verb choice. The first one talks about the group. The second sentence talks about the people, the instructors. So the group itself is singular and the people are plural. So this is how you would support your verb choice. When you're writing, if you happen to use collective nouns from your readings, and when you're summarizing, try writing the sentence out, and you're welcome to post it in the discussion and ask whether you think it should be a plural or should be a singular. And I myself or other students can give you feedback on it. It's always good to check before you hand in the assignment. A few more rules and then we're done. Rule number 7. Verbs change based on active voice or passive voice. Let's take a look at an active voice sentence. Corpus Christi students write many papers. So students, plural. So the verb here should also be plural, write. Okay, had to take a phone call there. Okay, so the active sentence reads, Corpus Christi students write many papers. Students being plural, so we need a plural verb form, write. It is an active sentence because we have the subject before the verb. Subject before verb. The passive sentence reads, many papers are written by Corpus Christi students. Take a moment to see what the subject is. Is it papers or students? Papers is actually the object. Who writes the papers? The students are. So here we see the order is different. Passive sentences have the object before the verb. So the papers are written by Corpus Christi students. Need to note though that the verb matching is different depending on active or passive voice. In an active sentence, the verb matches with the subject. In a passive sentence, it is the papers that are written, so it is the object that matches the subject in a passive sentence only. And that's rule number 7. Rule number 8. Verbs also change based on mood. There are a few different moods here on this. So the first mood is an indicative mood, which is trying to say a fact. The second mood is an imperative mood, which is trying to give a command, telling someone to do something. And the third kind of mood is subjunctive. So it's either to show a doubt, make a conjecture, like a kind of guess, or a suggestion. So let's try look at the first one, an indicative mood. You are a student. You are a student. You are starting your first term in college. Subject is you, singular, and well, are is the verb that matches with you, even though it looks plural. Let's look at number 2, imperative, a command. Jumpstart your education by learning the basics of academic writing. So learning the basics. We have the word by. That's a preposition. The verb form is always present progressive, an ing verb form. So it's by doing, by learning, by writing, etc. The verb we're looking for here is jumpstart. Here, because you're giving a command, usually you're giving a command to a person or a group of people. And when you give somebody a command, you're talking to that person as if you're talking to them like, you do this, you do that. Whether it's plural or singular, you're still using you. So you would use the form that doesn't have an S. It's just jumpstart, go, write, not goes or writes or jumpstarts. You use the singular, you use the plural form because you uses the plural form of verbs. Last one is the subjunctive. If I were you, I would practice writing every day. This was seen in one of the sentences that uses were, and it was changed to was, which was incorrect. So in the subjunctive mood, usually it's if I were doing this, or if I were you, or if I were someone else, you'd use the verb form were, which would match this verb, I would practice. So it's about something that could happen or should happen, not something that already happened, which is a fact. Gonna check how many rules you have here. You might be doing the same thing. Let's check. A few more rules and then we're done. Look at the scroll bar. We're at least over the halfway point. Rule 9. Pay close attention to verb tenses. We have different tenses like present tense, past tense, future tense. But we also have present perfect, something that's already been finished in the present. Some past perfect, something that has already been finished in the past. And future perfect, something that will have finished in the future. So these are the different tenses that you see. There are more tenses than this, and you can Google different tenses. Some say 9, some say 12, some say 16. But these 6 here are common ones, and especially these 3, simple past, simple present, and simple future. Let's take a look at each one of these. Present tense. Students write many papers. Plural noun, plural verb. Past tense. Students wrote many papers. In English, if you're working with past tense, it's easier. You have only one form. It's just the past tense. Doesn't matter if the noun is singular or plural. You still use the past tense verb form. Future tense. Students will write. So you need the word will, or sometimes is going to. But that's another rule that I will talk about after talking about will. If you use will, it's similar to past tense. You only need to use the infinitive form, write, and just add will before it. Students will write. You will do this. You will write. I will write. He will write. She will write. And so on. So if you use will, you don't need to change the verb form. However, if you use is going to, because we're working with is, so you have to match the verb again. Are going to, am going to. So watch out for that. Alright, in the present perfect form, it's similar to the is going to here that we're talking about. We need to match the has. So instructor is singular, so we have the singular form of have, which is has. If it's instructors, then we need to say have. Plural noun, plural verb. Have written. Past perfect. It should say had written. Again, past tense, it's easier. You use the past tense form, which is had, doesn't matter if it's singular or plural. And then you write the past participle form of the verb, written, or, well, write. And then its past participle form is written. So, again, past perfect, you use had and change the verb to hence, and that's it. Again, here, same thing, will have. Note, if you use will have, and this is the only form for present perfect there's no is going to have, although you can write this way, will have written. Again, you don't need to change the verb have or written here. You use the past participle form, written. You use the verb have, and you use will. So it'll just be will have written, will have eaten, will have gotten, and so on. Will have, and then the past participle form of the verb for future perfect. As you can see, this lecture has gotten very long, and the rules for grammar are numerous and complex. So it is important that we take the time to practice, and you may find yourself practicing these rules beyond this course and beyond the 1 to 2 hours of Canvas each day. And it is important because writing is thinking, and using the proper rules help you to think properly. And also, you can use the same rules to check instructions. Since we're talking about verbs and instructions tell you what to do, it is important that you know the proper verb forms as well. And you also use it in writing, so it is important to match the subject with the verbs too. And these rules help you do that. Next rule. Avoid inconsistency shifts in voice. Here are some examples. And this refers to Rule 7. Take a look at both sentences. We have first the incorrect sentence, and then the correct sentence. The incorrect sentence reads, when the instructor read the paper, the error was found. The correct sentence reads, when the instructor read the paper, she found the error. The instructor in this case is she, the teacher who taught this before me. Take a look. Instructor read the paper. So we have subject, verb. This is an active sentence. Active clause. So after this we read the error was found. Is this an active or passive clause? If you have answered passive, that's correct, because the instructor found the error, but it's not mentioned here. It talks about the error being found. So you have the object, which is the error, the verb. So you have a passive clause and a active clause mixed together. This would be considered an inconsistent shift in voice. So the correct version reads like this. When the instructor read the paper, she, which refers to the instructor, singular pronoun, found the error. The tense is the same. Here, read and read. They read the same, they look the same, they have the same letters, but this one is actually the past tense form of read. And here is the past tense form of find, which is found. Notice though that they're both active this time in the correct sentence. Both active voices, both clauses. So when you're writing sentences and you have more than one clause, make sure to match the voice in each clause. If you're using active in the first clause, use active in the second. And if you're using passive in the first clause, then you'd use passive in the second clause too. Let's try an example for rule number 8. Avoid inconsistent shifts in mood. We again have an incorrect sentence and a correct sentence. The incorrect sentence reads, go to the corpus webpage, find the link for Moodle, and the instructor will have given more directions on how to do the assignment. The correct sentence reads, go to the corpus webpage, find the link for Moodle, and click on the directions given by the instructor on how to do the assignment. Okay, let's take a look at the mood in the clauses for the first sentence, which is incorrect. Go to the corpus webpage. This is a command or an imperative. It's telling the students to do something, which is to go to the page. Find the link on Moodle, again another imperative. And then take a look at the last bit. The instructor will have given more directions on how to do the assignment. Here, it's just saying a fact. The instructor will do something. So using the terms in our lecture notes, it would be an indicative or fact. An imperative would be a command. Notice we have the first one being an imperative, the second one being an imperative, and the third one being an indicative. So the third one is different from the rest, and that would be inconsistent. We need to make this one also a command, which looks like this. Go to the corpus webpage, that's the same. Find the link for Moodle, that's the same. And then here you see click. Commands start with the verb first, telling somebody who is listening to do something. Click on the directions given by the instructor. So here we also have a command or an imperative. So the first one is a command, the second one is a command, and the third one is a command. So this sentence tells the reader to do three things. Go to the web page, find the link, and click on the directions. This way you have a consistent shift in mood. So whichever mood you're using, whether it's a fact or an indicative, a command or an imperative, or a suggestion, like a subjunctive, stick with the same mood throughout. Alright, rule number 9 example. Avoid inconsistent shifts in tense. Two sentences again. Incorrect and correct. I'll read the incorrect one first. If I were you, I would learn the basics of academic writing, reading, writing, and grammar. I will also read the extra materials prepared by the instructor. You should also try to ask questions to your instructor whenever you can. And here's the correct version. If I were you, I would learn the basics of academic reading, writing, and grammar. I would also read the extra materials prepared by the instructor, as well as ask questions whenever I could. The tense here is the conditional tense, if I were you. So then the verb tense that should follow is would, were, would. If I were you, I would learn, I would go do something. So here we see were, but then here in the incorrect sentence we see will and should also try. So here we have a future. And then here you have the present. Then you have here the conditional. So 3 shifts in the tense in one sentence, so that would be confusing. Instead, in the correct form, you stick with the conditional that you started with. Since it's were, if I were you, then I would learn the basics. I would also read, again, conditional. So these two match and it's consistent. Here, the ask here is interesting. It's put with as well as. So the tense that is consistent is with, that is not would, but it's part of this sentence right here. So I would read and ask, or read as well as ask. So here you have the present and the present. So these match. So you have I would learn and I would read and ask. So that's how you stay consistent in tenses as well. Just a tip. If you're trying to practice these shifts in tense or avoiding them, tense, mood, and voice, should try with shorter sentences. Here we worked with longer sentences to show you how complex it can be and the rules that you can apply. But if you're writing it, try writing some simpler sentences with 2 or 3 clauses or verbs or nouns that you can try to practice consistency in voice, mood, or tense. Write them in the discussion forum, and you can get feedback from me and or your peers. See. And we're done. So for extra practice, we have a couple extra practice materials on Canvas. So we have website links, as well as links on the website for practice. If you have the PowerPoint, you can click these, or on Canvas you can actually click on the links themselves. I'll show you where they are in another video, because this one is way too long. And here's a list of references of the sources that we use to show you the verb rules as well. That's it. No more slides for this lecture. Congratulations, you finished through one of the longer, harder lectures of this week that talks about verbs, which can be quite complicated in English grammar. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me on Canvas or with email. Try writing sentences in the discussion forum. I'll post a few examples myself. And yeah, stay tuned for more videos and lectures on other grammar things for today. Today is a grammar lesson day. Wish you the best of luck. And these grammar rules will help you write better summaries and also to read as well. See you next time.